Chirag. Welcome back to the Synapse Pod, episode 21. Ayush, say hi. Manik, say hi. Perfect. So, guys, last time we got to know that Manik came back from the States, and I wanted to start off with discussing a little about what all did he see there, and how was it? How was the travels? Did you see anything surprisingly amazing? Is there a new Uber coming up? What's happening? Some new innovations?
Surprisingly, most of the innovation which I saw, I didn't see anything which was there in the consumer segment this time around. Most of the innovation which I saw was on the B2B SaaS front. And you know that the consumer side innovation goes down a little during recession. So there was already a lot of conversation around recession happening. And each and every founder, and I did a lot of events there. I mean, that's what I had gone for. Almost every founder was kind of scared. And that's something which we should be looking from those guys. So the founder, and I'm talking about founders who have raised from Founders Fund, founders who have raised from A16Z, like then who's and who's of the valley, right? And these guys were like, everyone's doing a 30 months runway and everyone's shit scared. And you know what's the most surprising thing? Everyone's shit scared, everyone's doing all of this, and crypto is going down. Yet in San Francisco, I had someone showed me a Google Doc where it said like every single day there was a crypto event happening in San Francisco.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And yeah, enjoyed some good food. Had briskets, had ribs. That was pretty fun. And a lot more things which we can't say on the camera, so cheers.
Oh, that's crazy. So no, but I was also reading the crypto news the other day and got to somehow know after a deep dive of market analysis, and I think I shared with you guys 80% CAGR, CAGR. CAGR is compound annual growth rate with which the industry grows year on year. So 80% is unprecedented, and that's over the last 12 years since the first introduction of Bitcoin. No other industry has seen such a crazy massive growth.
Generative AI is new. If no one's ever heard of it,
It's crazy. It is crazy. This year, people have seen like apps like DALL-E.
Yes. I think everyone should explore DALL-E on their free time. Just put 3 or 4 different things together. I wish we could just pull things up. Right?
What is DALL-E, Mani? If you could just explain before we go on to the next thing.
DALL-E is a generative AI software. What you do is anything which you can think, right? Like you can give it a sentence and it will form an image, compromising everything around it. And it's going to create something unique that has never been created before. So if you say, and this is a very random example that I'm giving, not a random example, I think Snoop Dogg and Dobie's head kind of got together and it was really popular on Instagram that I saw today. But imagine saying Snoop Dogg, Black Hole, FIFA World Cup, all of those 3 things together and you will have something else created out.
Yeah.
And it's the AI working on it. So that's crazy. And that's generative AI, right? Like no human is coding what needs to come out. So I'm going to give a shout out to our friend Mansoor and his startup Beatover. These guys are doing music generative AI. Or even rephrase guys, right? Like they're doing generative AI in terms of videos that are going to come out.
What is rephrase?
These guys build up. You saw the Shah Rukh Khan ad where basically, I think it was Saurav Ganguly for Class Plus, Shah Rukh Khan for Cadbury, where they were promoting each local store. So it wasn't Shah Rukh Khan promoting each local store. The technology that was being used was rephrase, where they were using Shah Rukh Khan's face and head, and they could change it based on your geolocation. And you can say, hey, this Agarwal Sweets at this corner is from this particular person, and Shah Rukh Khan is advertising that.
Makes sense.
So yeah, generative AI is the hot most in thing. Almost every fund right now is talking about investing in generative AI.
Yeah.
So, but we have seen it and we have experienced it. If you build a startup long enough, you will know that there's going to be time when your sector is going to be the most hot, and there's going to be time when your sector is going to be the worst.
Yeah.
So what's interesting that's happening this year is that for a very long time, AI, generative AI and all have been on the infra level.
Yeah.
A lot of things have been happening in the back end and we didn't get to know about it, like it's working. For example, like any prediction, if it happens, like road traffic, weather forecast or whatever it is, there's a lot of data that goes into it which produces something and we take the output. So with generative AI, what has happened is that it has given consumer a tool to play with. DALL-E is that kind of a consumer tool. People can just put in some of the words, gibberish words or a story, like I was playing yesterday with DALL-E. I putting some stories, and it was taking out, it was making or creating images that was not being done there before. So that is interesting. Similarly, Google is working on a generative AI where you can convert the text to videos, not just image. So I mean, tomorrow you want to create an animation graphics, animation video. You don't want to hire an animation artist. You don't want to find that. You can just put in your story and you'll find a video being generated by AI by learning all the data that has been put into it, like billions of data points.
Same. I'm not sure if you guys use this tool called copy.ai.
Yeah.
I use copy.ai. Does not need a copywriter anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All you do is you put in what you want, which is like 10 words of it, like just one sentence. The next thing you do is you put in the mood that you want. You can put in luxurious, pleasure, or anything, right? Like any mood which sets your requirements, and it's going to come out. And there are going to be 10 different options, and you can select the ones which you like, and it's going to generate 10 more. And it's going to do it for your website, it can do it for your blogs, it can do short form content as well as long form content. And all you do is just edit it, post that.
Makes sense.
You don't need a copywriter anymore.
So
and it's really good.
So are you saying that blog writing is fundamentally going to change forever? And
even Twitter writing.
SEO?
Do Twitter writing. It could be as slow as short form content of Twitter writing or a headline.
Yeah.
You don't have to think it enough. It's generative AI which is being produced.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. No, so somehow I just feel that.
And it's not that expensive. It's $10.
No, I get it. But fundamental question like knowledge has been passed on through centuries by text, by writings, right? Now suddenly there is a generative AI which is going to create knowledge or insight into text by basically collating a lot of data across the internet. And then, so how do you differentiate between what is true human insight versus what is machine generated? Is there a distinction which you guys see? Is it morally correct to?
I mean, why is the distinction needed if we, even in the kind of content that humans create, we can see the extremes, right? I mean, you can still not stop a human sending out negative things out there in the.
Also, for every good book, there are 100 shitty books too.
100 shitty books, right? So, I mean, is the distinction needed, and for what?
So you're saying that human intelligence being passed on through centuries is equivalently same in terms of importance with respect to machine-based intelligence on paper.
I think it is better. Not even equally important. I think it is better in terms of comprehending a lot of things, in terms of search directories. I mean, in this movie also, Ready Player One, or the book that we have read, so there was a library where you can go and look into the vast data of a person who is not there anymore, because it is now being indexed by a tech machine, and it's easy to pull out the data when the person is not there. So even what has taken humans a long time to learn something is because of this passing of data in a non-technological manner. If that is there, then I think the civilization will fast or advance much faster, is what I think.
But there are some things which are very innate to human creativity, right? I don't know how to put
but DALL-E kind of takes that away, right? Like that's where exactly I was going towards. We have always thought that AI is going to take away jobs which are menial, which are blue collars, or the ones which is not going to be the most creative jobs are always going to be safe and secure, guys. Creativity is where everyone should be focusing on. Oh, artist is really creative, right? DALL-E is really creative. Yeah, copywriters are creative. Songwriters are creative. New music is creative. All those jobs are going away. I mean, it's not the music which can be earth shattering. It's not a copywriter which is earth shattering. It's still not yet.
Not yet.
That's the point. It's not yet. It's going to be. Let's just wait for it.
What I have a feeling is that humans are going to compete with their augmented self and their individual pet AIs, where every single person will provide the training data set to train the AI based on his experiences or her experiences throughout the life, the kind of data they wanted to collect, and of course they can choose for it to be connected to other AIs by a certain infrastructure, and then we are actually going to compete between our AIs in terms of business knowledge.
That's just gonna create a difference between a superhuman person versus that, right?
That's exactly the concept of Homo Deus.
Yeah.
Right? A machine merger with humans.
Or Life 3.0, that book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it's going to be the rich are going to be able to generate and have more value on their front because they're going to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
The amount of computing that's needed, the amount of, I mean, I heard Peter Diamandis speak over and over again how 100 is going to be the new 60s.
Yeah.
And he's been working on it. And they have actually had a lot of success where at 80 years old, the person still feels like a 70-year-old, which is a lot, by the way, specifically when you age. So how do you keep your body that fit? There's stem cell research which is happening at a crazy pace. There is a lot of research which is going into human longevity. Yeah. So that's another thing, by the way. Human longevity is huge in Silicon Valley right now.
Okay.
A lot of people are betting on it.
So this guy called Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the guy who's the flag bearer of a concept called singularity, which means by the year 2045, humans are going to merge with computers, and the AI is going to surpass every single human capability in terms of cognition, and that is going to be the initial starting of the Homo Deus. We were Homo sapiens till now, but that is the moment in time when suddenly we evolve from our genetic and organic nature into a more mechanical being, which can essentially fast track us into the future, for sure.
So right now we are in a transition period. I call it techno-sapien because of all these AIs that we are having. So it's not competing right now with humans, but it's assisting humans, like making a like Manik said, human a superhuman. Right. So all these like very simple example, like I've been using Grammarly, like non-cognitively now.
Yeah.
Grammarly.
What is Grammarly, Ayush?
So if I'm typing something, if I'm writing a mail, right? I mean, I don't have to take care of punctuation. I don't have to take care of grammar. I don't have to take care of if the sentence is proper or it can be better. So Grammarly suggests and improves whatever I'm writing.
Yeah.
Another version of it is copy.ai, which does not even need me to write something. And the next one would be maybe reading my mind and like putting out something. So this is how I'm transitioning from a human to a superhuman. So this is a techno-sapient phase where we are living in a tech-enabled environment. All the new generation that is being born is there in this environment. So I think this is the transitionary period towards what you were calling.
Correct.
But this also creates a problem. Let's come to the problem which I have heard, and I was reading this book. Basically, what it does is every human, because we are being so tech ingrained, causes an ADHD because everything is being built in a gamified manner.
Yeah.
Our attention deficits. It's called something else. It's not called ADHD, but it has the same symptoms as ADHD. And what it does is it slows our brain down because we are getting dopamine hit so much. And it's actually being seen. Millennials are the most vulnerable to it, but we don't even know what's going to happen to Gen Z and the Gen A. Because Gen Z and Gen A are going to be at a completely different level because their brains are transformed at age when they had dopamine at a they had a dopamine hit from 5 years of age.
Yeah.
We have it at say 10 or 15 years of age.
Yeah, 15 or later.
15 or later. So, and it's still changing our brain circuitry to another level.
Yeah.
And one of the most surprising factors, like 20% kids right now, which is the Gen Z and the Gen A alpha phase, which is the next generation. Anyone who's just a 10-year-old is a Gen Alpha. Anyone who's born after 2010 is a Gen Alpha, just for the audience. So anyone who's a Gen Alpha and Gen Z right now, 20% of them have thought of suicide before they turn 14.
Yeah, that was the data of US schools.
US schools, right? Like this.
It's fucking crazy, man.
20% is a lot. And you can go back to our school, right? Like, have you...
Never.
Not at a 14 or a 15 years of age.
The worst thing I would have thought is running out of the house for a day.
I think all of us have thought of it.
Yeah.
For the evening.
I think all of us have thought of it.
Yeah.
For the
And
evening.
for an evening, for a day. But that is a tantrum. That's not like a killing yourself and actually having a depressed thought. The amount of... It's just insane, the amount of people, the learning loss that happened during COVID and even the tech which we have. And I was reading up on this, right? Like, and we had this discussion that cigarettes were prescribed to people who had headaches back in 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Cigarettes was an answer and a cure to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because there were not enough dead bodies for people
Yeah.
to know that cigarettes
Yeah.
also causes
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
So we don't know there are enough
Oh,
dead
that-
bodies.
Yeah, the same thing is for social media, right?
Social media too.
On that note, I think just on cigarettes, we should also do a podcast on vaping. Since that
It's,
is
it's
what-
really.
Oh,
I
I've
mean,
seen
New York
that.
was amazingly filled. It was as filled of vaping as
Delhi.
Delhi is. I mean, I'm surprised. Like every party I went to in Delhi, or like everyone I interacted had a vape, and I was like, oh my god. Maybe
Yes.
Delhi vaping scene is more high than even New York.
And these
for
are all
that matter.
Chinese vapes that have come in.
Oh yeah,
especially-
even in US,
Yeah,
it's the Chinese
it's
vape.
the Chinese vapes, right?
Like Joule hit, but then it crashed. Now
Makes
it's
sense.
a lot of Chinese vape.
Chill. So, guys, moving on to the next topic. Today
Jack
we were
Ma.
discussing. Recent news, just for you guys. So Jack Ma, who had fled China back in 2020s when he criticized the government for its predatory policies, and the government put sanctions on him for anti-monopolistic measures, is finally found in Tokyo. He's living
Wow.
there with his family, going on vacations, enjoying his wealth. Meanwhile, he's doing a lot of trips to Israel and Spain and US as well. He supported, he came to India as well to meet Modi, and all this angered the Chinese government even more. But the crazy thing is that the Chinese government actually stopped Jack Ma's
And financial.
and Financial's IPO, which was supposed to be a $37 billion IPO, which is his financial company. And it's insane how just if you build against the legislation or if you build against the government, any kind of a startup or your business, no one is spared. And today only we were reading, right? Where you live, where you build, who you are with. These are the core things which completely define the quality of your life. So imagine how big a difference location makes for whatever you decide to build, because the effort is going to be the same. The years it takes is going to be the same, probably more or less for some, right? And I'm not talking about the exceptions. So all that matters is the blueprint that you sit with when you start building, and what you choose and where do you choose. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go for it, Raj.
So basically, China, in the past 25-30 years, it has been like a golden era for Chinese startup culture, because we've seen Alibaba and so many companies coming out of it. But what has happened this year in China is that the government has cracked down on multiple startups or tech companies, not just Alibaba or Ant Financial. So I think Didi, which is the car cap there, was also under the radar, and the market cap has fallen down like huge value. So the thing is that the Chinese government is a communist party, whatever they say, but I mean the blood is there for communist party. And before 30 years or 40 years in China, prior to 40 years ago, I think building a company or private organization was kind of a crime, because a lot of things were controlled by government. Majority of the essential items and factories and all those things were controlled by government, and China actually grew in the past few years, past few decades, and we see what it is right now. But I think that the fundamentals are still there, that if a startup or a person becomes more powerful in the eyes of people in China than the government, then government comes and bites back.
Exactly.
So this is something that has happened. So it's very important, like you're saying, that the country that you select and the country that you choose to build in is more important than anything else.
Anything else to start with?
Yeah, and then I'm just going back to April. I was in the ASU GSP summit, right? Like the biggest edtech thing that happens. And I'm not going to name, but one of the Indian unicorn founders said back in 2016 and 17, if anyone would have set foot in the ASU GSP summit, right, you would have only found Chinese founders. EdTech was a $50 billion industry in China. Everything is dead.
Yeah, everything is evaporated.
Wow.
They had more than 5 million educators from US teaching Chinese people in Chinese EdTech, right? But anyway, anyone who's in EdTech should read a paper by A16Z on EdTech. This is the first time they have built a thesis on EdTech. They never had a thesis before this on EdTech. So one of the things what happened is China had over 5 million people employed from US to teach English and different skills in China. All of them are without jobs because obviously Chinese tech crashed because of the Chinese government. And what it did was to leave a gaping hole which the US, because they had employees, right? Like the Chinese employees, and they were making some cheap, easy money.
Yeah.
And that went away.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's just a crazy idea, and China can do anything, and that scares me sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my fucking god!
Yeah.
If Alibaba, which was $500 billion or $300 billion at one point of time on its biggest heyday, can crash, who are we?
Yeah, if the richest man in China is not safe, then no one is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pure capitalism 101. But anyway.
Which brings us to the next thing, that is central bank.
Oh,
Digital
yes.
currency.
Oh yes, we need to discuss
Since
that.
we were talking about government.
Yeah.
CBDC, right?
CBDCs.
So what is happening, guys? Like, what's the news like? What is Indian government doing with respect to the rupee?
Building a better Paytm. Sorry, that's a joke which I like to have. RBI backed Paytm.
RBI back there. But Ayush, what do you think? What's happening?
In a way, what government is, so centrally backed digital currency is, you can, in simple manner, you can think of it as a digital coin being issued by RBI. Like RBI prints money by backing some assets for that, gold, reserves, whatever. Right. Similarly, instead of printing out money like physical cash, they are printing out digital coins. So, but anyone can ask, like, how is it different? I already have a bank account where I can say digital rupee. I don't have to carry cash, whatever. So, India is a population where 70% of, so roughly 70% of the population lives in a rural area. The cost of transporting that cash, physical cash, to a remote area is very high. And secondly, you need to have a bank there. Operating and running a bank in a remote rural area is also expensive and not profitable for a bank, because there's not a lot of lending options there. Bank earns from savings, lending, investments and whatnot. Right, so it's not there. So that's why what government wants to do is to transport this money digitally without in the need of having a bank. So if you can let the other guy open a digital wallet, then you can just drop in money there, and which can be used as a currency to run the economy.
But how would this be different from the digits I see in my bank account, for example?
Or digital form of money which you have, right?
Which
Like
I
a phone
already
pay or
have.
UPI.
Yeah, because that is also a digital ledger of the amount of wealth that a person has. So how would this be different from what I see in my bank account?
So that's what I'm saying. It might not be relevant for you right now. It is more relevant for the government to reach out to a higher mass.
Are you saying it is more relevant for the unbanked?
Yes.
Okay.
As per me, it is more relevant for unbanked.
Okay.
As per me, it is more relevant for unbanked.
So there is another way,
Yeah.
and this is RBI statement, and I'm just going to rephrase it. Is the fact that the digital currency which the RBI is going to launch is going to be backed by the RBI. RBI is going to be the ledger behind it. Currently, all the digital formats, there is a commercial entity behind
Yeah.
it. It could be a phone pay behind it, it could be a Paytm behind it, it could be HDFC, ICICI, whatever, a bank is behind it, but not RBI. It's not RBI backed. Right now, it's going to be RBI backed. That's that's a very thin line to tread on, because that's where the privatization and the publicization.
But that is so fucking crazy, right? As soon as RBI starts to compete with the banks, right now it is interest free, as you said, right? This digital rupee is going to be interest free,
Yeah,
right?
you're not going to get interest on them.
Yeah.
You're not going to earn interest on
on
them,
interest,
like
on saving it.
on saving it. Right.
But as soon as RBI starts to compete with these commercial banks, suddenly it doesn't need any of them.
That's a good point. Correct. Right now, the physical rupee is backed by RBI, but that digital version of that physical rupee is
Privatized.
It's privatized.
Yeah.
All the private banks. So that's why we see SWIFTs. That's why we see NFTs. That's why we see all these visas and
Credit cards.
and other infra in place which
Yeah.
which act as a balance and checker.
Yeah.
Like banks
Yeah.
act as a balance and checker
Yeah.
for those things.
And after all these scams and frauds, shitty lending which these banks are doing by taking RBI money, and then RBI has to bail them out or provide some bail.
But it's still better, right? Like there's still an HDFC which has been doing extremely well. For every yes bank, there is an HDFC.
So are you saying that with this, the government will move towards more of a
I don't think so.
socialist?
No, I think it's going to make 100% of the money traceable. Is what I can say right now. If there's a cash flow in the
10%.
system, I'm saying that if 100% of the
Yeah.
currency gets converted to CBDCs in coming years, so what is going to happen is it's going to become 100% traceable.
Yeah.
If there's a cash movement right now, first it is expensive. It is hard to keep a track of it. And both the things are going to get solved by CBDCs, which is beneficial for government.
So you know what it feels like? It feels like first the spectrum of telecom is definitely owned by the government, and then it allowed private players. Then suddenly it said that the all the calls and the bandwidth is also going to be owned by the government, and we'll just allow value-added services to be built on it. So I feel that the banks will ultimately become financial products, retailers for financial products and nothing else. Where this digital rupee is going to be the backbone, and then these retailers are going to essentially do lending and borrowing.
Exactly. All
I
these
think,
services are not going to be
Do
provided.
you
by
now
RBI.
think Sachin Bansal was light years ahead with Navi?
Yeah, it's insane because he actually built a stack on top of, let's say, this digital rupee.
Yeah, because he built it on top, like he assumed that CBDC will happen. Because all of
really?
all of this will be able to work really well. And maybe it's just not him. Maybe there are other guys, including all the other players in the market, right? Like all of them can very swiftly move on to that, including the bigger ones like Paytm, PhonePe, Bajaj Finance. We don't consider like it's a
No, Bajaj Finance is huge in lending.
Yeah.
like it's a mammoth, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a woolly mammoth. Like it's the biggest in lending. Like it's insane. But still, I think it's going to be fun. Let's just put it.
Yeah.
Fintech is going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, and essentially we did a very early podcast on ONDC, right?
Oh yeah.
So all I see is how the government is actually building this digital stack apart from what it
correct.
and then suddenly it is allowing people to build their small services, but suddenly one crackdown and it owns everything. That is scary to me, essentially. Like, and that is where I feel
I see it more like updating the infra. So government in the past also was investing heavily on building infra, right? Metros,
The whole
transportation,
iSpirit organization.
everything, right? So it's more like they're digitizing their infra, and they're going to be enabler instead of like controlling something. They would want other people to build services, like you said, on top of it to earn money or to
Like they
provide
built
better
Beam,
service.
right? But they didn't ever
Exactly.
own the.
That's a good
UPI.
example. Like Beam they made, but Beam is not the primary UPI app that everyone uses.
It's
People
PhonePe.
use PhonePe, people use different other apps, right? But Beam is the infra that everyone uses.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
government is not going to compete, but it's going to enable and show what can be done with their infra. That
Yeah, then the government has all the data of
Traceable. Everything will be traceable.
Everything will be traceable. It is end-to-end surveillance of sorts.
We are going into surveillance state, and George Orwell is right.
Anyway, this wanted to keep this a quick short pod,
Yeah.
right?
But I will have to give a voice out. Have any one of you been watching FIFA World Cup?
No man, not too
I've
much.
been following the scores and highlights,
But I've heard a lot of controversy with Jio and FIFA, right?
Yeah, because you can't really watch it.
That is where I was coming from. I have been trying to watch it, and it's insanely shitty. If anyone from Jio is listening, guys, please hire better engineers. It's horrible experience.
yeah, I didn't know from Hotstar.
I mean, I didn't know how good Sony Live was till the time I used Jio Cinema.
I think acquiring would be easier for them.
Guys, acquired Hotstar. Please.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. See you back on episode 22. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon. that helps you know when we are live and when we come out with the pod. Thank you so much. Right?
Alright, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.